Okay, so you're trying to put together your awesome fight scene and you're having trouble figuring out where to put what moves and how to structure it and how to tell your story. Well, this is Seltzer Arts, and today we're going to be discussing phases of the fight. So before we get into it, let's talk about terminology. When we talk about fight choreography, we talk about phrases. A phrase is a group of moves, techniques, choreography that encompass an idea or have an actual break in them in your fight. So it's a way for us actors and directors to organize our fight. So we'll have phrase 1, phrase 2, phrase 3, phrase 4, etc., etc. I generally tend to do 3 phrases just because I feel like it gives me the best arc. But you can do as many as you need. So I generally break down my choreography into 3 phases. Phase 1, the introduction. Phase 2, the testing. And phase 3, the crescendo. These correspond to phrase 1, phrase 2, and phrase 3. Often I'll put a little 4th phrase at the end to encompass whatever my kill or wound or disarm or however the fight concludes. So phase 1 is the introduction. 2 characters meet and they establish their relationship. If they already know each other from earlier in your film, movie, play, whatever, and they have an established relationship, and this is either going to reinforce that relationship or it's going to change it. If they don't know each other, this is when you're making that relationship and explaining the power dynamic between the 2 characters. So whatever happens here, we move on to the testing phase. And the testing phase is when you test that established power dynamic. That's when you need to play around with different choreography and make them really put each other to the test. After that, whatever the outcome from phase 2, the testing, we go to phase 3, the crescendo. And that's when we go to the inevitable conclusion of my wound, my disarm, whatever. It just kind of snowballs from there. So we're going to do a little demonstration. We're going to play 2 characters most people know. I'm going to play Macbeth, she's going to play Macduff. And we are going to establish the relationship, test it, and then find the conclusion. So we know how this ends. I die! Spoiler alert. But getting there is the interesting part, right? So if you look at these 2 characters, my character has changed a lot from the beginning of this. He is kind of reckless now, believing himself to be invulnerable, and he also has the whole world crumbling around him. This character is out for blood because of all the terrible things that I have done. Now we have an established relationship, we haven't fought before. So this is very interesting to see what happens here.
Turn, Hellhound, turn.
So you can see that Macbeth is pretty rooted to the spot. He doesn't move a whole lot, and he kind of is this pillar of strength, whereas Macduff moves around Macbeth and kind of has to get away from his big attacks. So we've established a power dynamic, and the power dynamic is that I have the power and that they don't. But they're not afraid of me, right? So that's what we're going to test in phase 2. So phase 2, testing. We already have our established dynamic. I am powerful and I am being aggressive, but they're not afraid of me, they're willing to deal with it. So we go into our second phrase, which is our second phase, and it looks like this. Blood, blood, blood. So, Macbeth continued to aggress and not yield until their arrogance and seeing themselves as invulnerable led to getting hurt, which takes us into the whole, from my mother's room on Time of the Rift, finding out that this character is the only person that can kill Macbeth, and whoopsies, I just, challenged him to a fight, so not good for me. Okay, so now Macbeth is wounded, and he realizes that he's facing the one person who is destined to kill him, but he's still arrogant, and he will not admit defeat. His line is, I will not yield. So let's watch all of his mistakes crescendo into his final defeat. I will not yield. So that's a very basic explanation of a way that I like to structure my fights. We have the introduction where you establish the connection between the characters. You have the testing phase where they push each other to the boundaries of that relationship. And then we have the crescendo where the character, whatever happens in phrase 2, be that the power dynamics stay the same or then they turn. We then crescendo that into the final wound or kill or whatever it can be. And remember, we can always add extra phrases onto the end and make these phases longer. So maybe phase 1 is phrase 1 and 2, or however you want to do it.